what is a living wage? How much is that actually? So we decided to create a wage ladder where brands, first of all, create insights in what they actually pay right now, and to what extent there is the wage gap between what they actually pay now and what they are supposed to pay in terms of a living wage, or at least a legal minimum wage, which is one step further. And this kind of went on because once you know that, you also want to see, okay, and how, once you know what they need to earn, you still have the issue that brands, they don't pay wages. They cost for a product. So they pay an FOB price, so to say. So in that FOB price, you need to calculate this new reality of a living wage. So this is also when we started to come up with a method called the labor minute costing to make this this switch. Okay, how can you make sure that this is integrated in your costing and assure that you can pay for a living wage? And also some of the other issues, and one of them I shared today with you is the point of competition. One of the very first issues that were raised by our member brands is how can we work together on this? Because it's nice that you say that we need to collaborate, but the competition law is telling us differently, or at least that was their main fear. And I think in that sense, this really, and also the opinion that you probably read by Arnold and Porter showed that this is possible under specific circumstances, and that you have do's and you have don'ts, but it's not impossible to do so. And that was quite important to understand, and also to get brands moving on this topic. And this kind of then elaborated in in an approach, a living wage approach that we now have. So we ask 3 questions basically. How much do you need to pay? Who is paying that extra? And how is the money in the end going to workers? And I think who pays is, of course, something which is still quite interesting, because it's always an ongoing discussion. Do you need to pay that from basically from your margins as a company? So is that something that's directly paid from the margin of a company, or are there other ways of doing that? So we also looked into productivity guidance. So can you make your production lines, for example, more productive or more efficient? And what are the pros and the cons for that? I'm not going to spell out the whole thing, but the bottom line is that it never goes without an investment prior to that. So you need to do a good investment prior to productivity and efficiency gains. So it's always comes back to the relationship, and also the long-term work relationship between the buying company and the supplying company. And lastly, I wanted to point out also that worker involvement here is key. So we want the workers to be involved in those steps, which is key, because only then do you know if they actually are taken along and also have a say on whether it's good enough. So that is the guidance that we do with brands. So we really take them along in, okay, what is an issue like living wage, but I could have done a similar thing for child labor, or no exploitation of child labor, or how to prevent forced labor. there's different things, or we also have guidance on excessive overtime. And then we also, on an annual basis, we check basically with our member brands, how are they doing on those different topics. So we've developed a brand performance check where, based on multiple indicators, we check on their progress. So it's not so much that we say it's a pass-fail, so you're doing good, you're doing not good, but we want to see, are you making progress over time, and do you keep up with that progress? So is it at least remaining the same, or preferably, are you starting to do better over time? That is actually what we prefer to measure there. Yeah, it also gives us an indication of, have they understood the policies and the membership agreement that we uphold with them. And lastly, we're also testing new solutions. So I refer to the labor minute costing calculators. So together with Schijvens, for example, the one in the middle, they started a living wage project in Turkey. And at one point, they really wanted to know, okay, how much extra do we now actually have to pay on our FOB? So we piloted it with them to see if this could work. And now we've been scaling this, and it's called now the Fair Price app, and it's available basically for the entire industry to use, which not only helps our brands now, but also other brands can use it. Yeah, well, just to stress it again, brand collaboration is key with us. As an MSI, we really see the need for them to work together on identifying risks, preventing them, and remediating them, and also to see, okay, how can we jointly follow up from any of the issues here. A nice example, if we talk about living wages, we have Zeeman, a well-known discounter in the Netherlands and Germany, and Schijvens, which is a workwear company in the Netherlands. And they found out together that they were working in a factory in Pakistan, where Schijvens was already initiating a living wage project. And from there on, they started working on this together. And right now, they are both paying their fair share towards a living wage. So they've been able to increase the wages there, not fully to a living wage, but they are really working towards one. Just to go one step further again in the supply chain, because we also work with our country teams at factory level. There we also do brand guidance. So if there is an issue in the supply chain, we help them to figure out what can they do best. So we've tried to facilitate them in that sense. And improve it. The other points are factory audits, a complaint helpline. Let me go one step further here. I think that's helping. So we have audits as Fairware, which we now will use as assessments in our HRDD approach. And basically, our way of working there is it's not a pass-fail outcome again. So we want basically the companies, the suppliers, to open up their books for us, say, okay, even if the things are not good, we actually want our brands to stay and work together with you on these issues. So that's an important starting point in this discussion to improve. We also have a lot of training in the production factories. So there's training on our code of labor practices, also on how to use a worker complaint helpline, but also trainings on gender-based violence, etc. And I think one of the important things that we have, especially at this level, is that so at factory level, we do require factory level grievance mechanisms to be there, but we also have a safety net, and that's our Fairware complaint helpline, which basically has complaint handlers ready to basically to collect complaints by workers that we then can pass on to the member brands to follow up on, and well, basically jointly come to a good conclusion if possible. But then, so this is all what Fairware is doing, and that's very nice. And we have 140 member branch, which is nice, but within the picture that perhaps Marty showed last week as well. So even if you have the top 10 brands, the big 150, but then the top 10 out of that, you still have a very minimal, well, at least 15-20% of the garment industry, at least for the Europe and US markets. But we have a very small share out of that, so not even 1%, I would say. So the impact in that sense is quite low, and we realize that fully. We see that the work that we do with member brands is mostly also to see that things that others say it's not possible or which is difficult, that we try to work together with brands to see if there is a solution possible. So for us, it's really the testing of new solutions that make it interesting to work with member brands and to see can we progress on hard to solve issues. But besides that, it's also quite important for us that there's other ways that we need to use our influence in order to improve the supply chain conditions. And first of all, I want to point out that Fairware tries to influence the enabling environment in that sense. So governments, international organizations like the UN, but also other stakeholders. So for example, in Germany, we're trying to work a lot with German legislators on the new Lieferkettengesetz, the human rights due diligence legislation there, but also on the labels that they are starting to use, like the Grüne Knopf. But also a nice example on directly trying to influence the corporate sustainability due diligence directive at EU level to make sure that it's nicely in line with the international ambitions that we have. And also follow suit with kind of the ILO principles and the UN and OECD guidelines that we follow. Another way that we work together is basically to set collaborations with like-minded organizations to leverage impact. So this means that we're not saying, okay, in order to get scale, we need to merge, but we say together we determine a common goal. So for example, one of the examples we have there is that we wanted to say, okay, how does responsible purchasing practices look like? And together with a few other MSIs, for example, the Ethical Trading Initiative, we work together on a common framework for responsible purchasing practices. Another example that we work now on is a common standards for grievance mechanisms, which is called the CARI platform, where we try to basically leverage the learnings that Fairer has, but also the learnings from other institutions or MSIs to come together and see, can we create this higher standard for that?